When your child looks you in the eye and speaks with blatant disrespect, or worse, rolls their eyes, walks away, or lashes out with words that sting, it hits you at the core. There's a part of you that wants to snap back, to assert your authority, to demand that they never speak to you like that again. And trust me, I get it, as a parent, that disrespect cuts deep. It shakes something inside you, because you know all you've sacrificed and given, and this is what you get in return. But here's the hard truth. Reacting out of that hurt, out of that frustration, often makes things worse. That impulse to raise your voice, to lecture, to punish out of anger, that's the moment we have to resist. Not because we're weak, but because we're wise. Staying calm when our child disrespects us is one of the most powerful things we can do as parents. It's not easy. In fact, it might be one of the hardest parts of parenting, but it's absolutely essential. When we stay calm, we keep control, not just over the situation, but over ourselves. And in parenting, self-control is often more important than child control. Think about it. When was the last time yelling ever truly taught a lasting lesson? When we lash out, we don't correct the problem. We often become part of it. Our emotional reactions can cloud the issue and turn a teachable moment into a battle of egos. But when we pause, take a breath, and respond instead of react, something powerful happens. We create space for perspective, space for wisdom, space for that child of ours to not just hear what we say, but actually absorb it. Because let's be honest, no kid ever listened better because we got louder. They listen better when they feel safe, even in correction. Calm doesn't mean passive, it means intentional. Now, I know someone is probably thinking, so what? I'm just supposed to let them disrespect me. No, not at all. This isn't about letting it slide. It's about choosing your response strategically, not emotionally. You can still correct. You can still discipline, but you do it from a place of strength, not from a place of offense. When you stay calm, you're not giving up your authority. You're reinforcing it with maturity. And here's the kicker. Your calm presence teaches your child more than your words ever could. You're modeling how to handle conflict, how to manage emotions, how to face disrespect without becoming disrespectful. And don't think they're not watching. Even in their worst moments, they're absorbing how you handle yours. They may not say it now, but one day they'll remember how you didn't lose it when they did. That kind of quiet strength sticks with a child. It also keeps the lines of communication open. If your child feels like every mistake turns into a meltdown, they're less likely to open up next time. But when they know you can handle their anger, their confusion, even their bad attitude, they're more likely to come to you with the deeper stuff. That's how trust is built, even in moments of tension. And here's another thing. Sometimes what feels like disrespect is really just a cry for connection. It might come out messy, it might come out loud, but underneath that tone or attitude is a kid who might be overwhelmed, hurting, or unsure of how to say what they really mean. Staying calm helps you see past the surface and respond to the real issue. It gives you the clarity to ask yourself, what's really going on here? What's behind this reaction? What does my child need in this moment? Not just from a behavioral standpoint, but emotionally. Of course, it takes practice. None of us get it right every time. I've raised my voice. I've said things I regretted. But every time we choose calm over chaos, we lay another brick in the foundation of respect. Not just the kind we want from our children, but the kind we give them, and over time that foundation holds up. Even when storms come, it holds. So the next time your child speaks with disrespect, remember, your greatest power isn't in how loud you can get, but in how steady you can remain. That steadiness becomes the anchor they didn't know they needed, and it may not change them in that moment, but it will shape them in the long run. Let your calm be the loudest voice in the room. Let's talk about boundaries, because without them, parenting turns into a guessing game. And when a child shows you no respect, one of the first places to look is whether the boundaries in your home are clear and consistent, because I'll tell you, kids test limits, that's what they do, not because they're bad, but because they're human. They want to know, where's the line, and maybe even more important, what happens when I cross it? The truth is, respect and structure go hand in hand. A child who knows the rules, knows the consequences, and sees them applied with consistency starts to feel a sense of safety. They might not say that, of course. What they'll say is, that's not fair, or why do I have to? But underneath all that pushback, they're learning that life has structure, and that structure matters. If you've ever found yourself repeating the same warning 5, 6, 7 times, or negotiating with your child over every basic request, chances are the boundaries are too soft or too unclear. You see, unclear boundaries create power struggle. And when a child senses inconsistency, they'll keep pushing to find out where the actual line is. They're not always doing it on purpose, but they are doing it. And the more we move the line, the more confusing it becomes. Let me be real with you. Setting boundaries doesn't mean being rigid or harsh. It doesn't mean barking orders or laying down ultimatums all day long. What it means is creating clear expectations and then calmly, consistently reinforcing them. It's saying, in this house, we treat each other with kindness, and then following through when that doesn't happen, not with anger, but with action. Boundaries without follow-through are just suggestions, but boundaries with calm, consistent consequences, that's where growth happens. Now, here's where it gets hard. Consistency requires discipline, not just from your child, but from you. It's easier in the moment to let something slide, to give one more warning, to avoid the tantrum or the argument. But every time we avoid enforcing a boundary, we accidentally tell our child that we don't really mean what we say. And when they stop believing that we mean what we say, respect starts to erode. But when we stick to the plan, when we say, if you speak that way again, you'll lose your screen time, and we actually follow through, something begins to shift. Your child may not like the boundary. They may protest, cry, argue, but deep down they're also learning that your word has weight. They're learning that actions have consequences. They're learning how to live in the real world where rules matter. It's also important to remember that boundaries are about love, not control. I set boundaries with my kids because I care about their future, not because I need to win an argument today. I'm not raising a child to obey me forever. I'm raising an adult who understands how to function in a world filled with people, authority, rules, and responsibilities. And that starts in the home with clear boundaries and loving correction. One of the most respectful things you can do for your child is to give them structure. You may think they hate it. They complain every time I say no. But deep down, they feel more secure when they know what to expect. That consistency builds trust, it builds a sense of safety, and eventually it builds respect, not just for you, but for others, for themselves, and for the world they're growing into. Let me tell you something else. Boundaries don't just teach children how to behave, they also teach them how to treat others. When you don't allow yelling, slamming doors, or name calling in your home, you're not just protecting your own dignity. You're teaching your child how to handle disagreement with respect. When you hold the line calmly and firmly, you're showing them that conflict doesn't have to mean chaos, and look, this isn't about perfection. There will be days you give in, days you raise your voice, days when you're too tired to follow through. I've had those days too, but the goal is direction, not perfection. Every time you choose consistency, you're steering your child in the right direction. Every time you reinforce the line, you're giving them something solid to grow around, because at the end of the day, kids don't respect boundaries because they're easy. They respect boundaries because they're clear, firm, and loving. And when those boundaries are in place, it becomes a whole lot easier for respect to take root. Respect grows best where the lines are strong and the love is steady. One of the most important things we can do when our child shows us no respect is to stop and ask ourselves, what's really going on here? I'm not talking about just reacting to the behavior. I mean really pausing to look beneath the surface. Because more often than not, disrespect is just the tip of the iceberg. What we see on the outside, talking back, slamming doors, eye-rolling attitude, that's only part of the picture. Underneath it, there's almost always something deeper happening. See, when a child lashes out or talks in a way that stings, it's easy to assume they're just being rebellious or defiant. But what I've learned, both as a parent and as someone who's walked with a lot of other parents, is that kids often act out when something inside of them is out of balance. It could be emotional. Maybe they're dealing with fear, frustration, confusion, or sadness, and they don't know how to express it the right way. It could be physical. Maybe they're overtired, hungry, or overstimulated. It could even be relational. Maybe they're feeling disconnected from us or from someone else in their life, and they're reacting to that disconnection the only way they know how. And this is where it takes real maturity on our part to not just correct the behavior, but to understand it. Because if we only respond to the disrespectful words or the bad attitude without digging deeper, we might miss the heart of the issue. We might win the battle and lose the relationship. And I don't know about you, but I'm not trying to raise a child who's scared into silence. I'm trying to raise a child who learns how to manage what's going on inside them with honesty and self-control. Now, I'm not saying we excuse the behavior, not at all, but we do need to understand it. You'd be surprised how much can change just by asking a few simple questions. Instead of saying, "Don't talk to me like that," try asking, "Hey, what's going on? That's not like you." That question alone can be a game changer. It lets your child know you see more than just their attitude. You see them, you're paying attention, you care enough to look past the symptom and get to the source. Sometimes the disrespect is really about frustration. Maybe they're struggling with school or friendships or feeling left out. Sometimes it's about insecurity. They don't know how to say, "I'm scared." So instead they say something rude or sarcastic. And sometimes, honestly, they're just overwhelmed. They've got feelings they don't know how to name, and all they know is to push back. But when we slow down and ask the right questions, when we listen more than we talk in those moments, we begin to understand what they're actually trying to communicate, even if they don't quite know how to say it yet. Let me say something else that's important here. Sometimes our kids are reacting to something we've done or haven't done. Maybe we've been distracted, impatient, inconsistent, or even unfair, and their disrespect is their messy way of crying out for attention or fairness. I'm not saying it's okay, but I am saying it's possible. And if we want to grow strong relationships with our kids, we have to be humble enough to admit when we've missed the mark too. That kind of honesty builds bridges. It doesn't excuse their behavior, but it sets a tone for healing and trust. Here's another thing we've got to remember. Children aren't born knowing how to handle emotions. That's something they learn, hopefully from us. And if they don't learn it from us, they'll learn it from the world. So when they get disrespectful and we stop and ask ourselves what they might be feeling or facing, we're not just reacting to a moment. We're teaching them how to examine what's going on inside. We're giving them the tools to name what they're feeling and deal with it in healthier ways. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do in the face of disrespect is not to fight it head on, but to slow down and get curious. What's behind that tone? What's underneath that eye roll or harsh word? It doesn't mean we let it slide. It means we care enough to reach beneath the behavior and speak to the heart. And when we do that, when we make space to understand instead of just control, we don't just fix the moment. We build trust, we open doors, we grow our kids and ourselves in ways that go far beyond a single conversation. Always seek to understand before you correct, because what's behind the behavior is often where the real change begins. One of the biggest lessons I've learned in parenting, sometimes the hard way, is that kids don't learn respect because we demand it. They learn respect because we model it. It's easy to think that respect starts with the child and ends with how they treat us, but it actually starts with us and how we treat them. What we show them consistently, day in and day out, becomes their template for how to treat others. And that's why modeling the respect we expect is so important. It's not enough to tell them to be respectful. We've got to show them what respect looks like in real life, in the middle of stress, frustration, disagreements, and even when they mess up. It's in those moments when they're pushing boundaries, when they're being difficult, when the tension is high, that's when our example matters most, because that's when they're watching to see if what we say matches what we do. Think about how we respond when they interrupt us, when they ask the same question for the 5th time, when they get it wrong again. Do we talk down to them? Do we snap? Do we dismiss their emotions or opinions because we're tired or distracted? Every one of those moments is an opportunity to show them that respect isn't just something we expect when everything is going smoothly. It's something we give even when things are messy. And let's be clear, respect doesn't mean being permissive or passive. You can be firm and respectful at the same time. You can correct your child, hold them accountable, and set strong boundaries without ever belittling them or making them feel small. In fact, the most powerful discipline is the kind that comes with dignity. When a child feels respected, even while being corrected, something amazing happens. They begin to trust that your authority is not just about power, it's about love. So often when kids act out or show disrespect, it's because they don't yet know how to handle their own emotions. And sometimes, if we're honest, neither do we. We're tired, we're stressed, we've had a long day. And then our kid says something rude or rolls their eyes, and it just lights the fuse. But when we react out of that frustration, we miss the chance to teach something deeper. We teach self-control by exercising it. We teach kindness by speaking it. We teach respect by living it, even when it's not returned. And I know what someone might be thinking. Well, they're the child. I shouldn't have to prove anything. But respect isn't about proving anything. It's about planting something. It's about showing your child what healthy communication looks like, even in the heat of the moment. It's about speaking with purpose, not just reacting out of impulse. And over time, that kind of example becomes part of the atmosphere of your home. It shapes how your child talks to their siblings, their friends, their teachers, their future spouse. That's how generational change happens, through the patterns we set now. One thing I've found really helpful is this. Before I say something in frustration, I try to ask myself, would I want to be spoken to like this? And I don't always get it right, but that question helps reframe the moment. Because at the end of the day, my child is a human being, a smaller, less experienced one, yes, but still a person who deserves the same basic dignity I expect from others. When we take the time to listen, really listen, even when we disagree, we're showing our children that their voice matters. When we apologize after we've handled something poorly, we're showing them that admitting when you're wrong isn't weakness, it's strength. And when we give them eye contact, a calm tone, and a respectful posture, even in the middle of discipline, we're not just correcting them, we're developing them. There's a difference between obedience that comes from fear and respect that grows from relationship. And the only way to build that kind of relationship is to lead by example. Our children are not just learning from our rules, they're learning from our reactions. They're learning from how we handle disappointment, how we navigate stress, and how we respond to their failures. Every one of those is a teachable moment, not just for them, but for us too. The truth is, you can't expect what you don't reflect. If we want our children to treat us with respect, it starts with us treating them with it, not just when they're lovable, but especially when they're difficult. Because in those moments, our example isn't just teaching them how to treat us, it's showing them how to carry themselves in the world. Respect begins at home, and it begins with us. When a child shows us no respect, one of the hardest things to face is the anger it stirs up in us. That fire in your chest, that tightness in your jaw, the way your heart starts pounding, it's real and it's human, but the way we handle that anger is what makes all the difference. Because if we want to teach our children to deal with conflict and emotion in a healthy way, we've got to start by managing our own reactions first. You can't meet fire with fire and expect peace to follow. When your child is yelling or rolling their eyes or storming off, it's tempting to raise your voice, to shut it down hard, to match their emotion with your own. But here's the truth. If you let their emotional chaos pull you into your own, you've both already lost the moment. Now, it's not about teaching, it's about control. It's not about guiding, it's about overpowering. And kids don't learn respect in that kind of environment. They learn fear, or worse, indifference. But when you respond with calm, even when they're losing it, you shift the entire tone of the interaction. You might not feel calm inside, you might be ready to snap, but if you can take a breath, pause for even a moment, and respond with steady, grounded words, you change the outcome. Because you're not just diffusing the situation, you're modeling self-control, and that's a lesson no lecture will ever teach as powerfully as your presence in a hard moment. That doesn't mean you ignore the disrespect. Not at all. It just means you respond to it with clarity, not chaos. You say, I will not allow you to speak to me that way, and we'll talk when you're ready to have a respectful conversation. Then you walk away if needed. You're holding the line, but you're doing it with authority, not aggression. That shows your child something they desperately need to see, that it's possible to be firm without being explosive. Let's be honest. Parenting will test every ounce of your patience. There will be days when your child pushes every button you have, but the goal isn't to never feel anger. The goal is to not let anger drive your parenting, because the moment your anger becomes the loudest voice in the room, the lesson gets lost. All your child sees is your rage, not your reason, and over time, if that becomes the pattern, it builds a wall between you and them. A wall that gets higher every time they feel punished instead of understood, shamed instead of guided. But when you choose to stay calm, to speak with purpose, even when you're frustrated, something powerful starts to happen. You begin to teach your child that emotions don't have to control them, that just because you feel something strongly doesn't mean you have to act on it recklessly. You begin to create a culture in your home where people can disagree, be upset, even feel disrespected, and still treat each other with dignity. That's not just parenting, that's leadership. And I'll tell you this, if you've lost it before, if you've yelled, slammed a door, or said something you regret, you're not alone. We've all been there. What matters most is what you do after, owning your own behavior, saying, I shouldn't have spoken to you that way, is one of the most powerful ways to repair trust and model growth. You're showing your child that everyone messes up, but not everyone takes responsibility, and when they see you do that, it gives them permission to do the same. One thing that's helped me is learning to recognize the signs in myself when I'm about to boil over. That moment when my breathing gets shallow, my voice gets tight, and I feel that urge to react. That's my cue to pause, to step away if needed, to take a breath, say a prayer, or even take 5 minutes in another room to cool down. Because parenting is not about winning battles. It's about building people. And sometimes the best thing we can do is delay a conversation until we can have it with wisdom instead of heat. Staying calm doesn't mean you're letting things slide. It means you're choosing to handle things in a way that preserves the relationship while still addressing the issue. It's strength under control, and it teaches your child that respect isn't just something you give when you feel good. It's something you offer even when the moment is tense. That's how we grow emotional maturity in our kids, by showing it first ourselves. Your calm presence in a storm may be the very thing that teaches your child how to weather their own. When your child shows you no respect, it's easy to feel discouraged, even defeated. You might start to wonder if anything you're doing is working, or if it's all just slipping through the cracks. But let me encourage you with this: consistency is the slow, quiet work that builds the foundation of a child's heart. It doesn't always get applause. It doesn't always show quick results, but it's the key to change. When your child is disrespectful, what they need most isn't a different parent. It's a steady one who doesn't change with the mood of the day, but who stands firm, loving, and clear in what's right. Children thrive in boundaries. Even when they resist them, even when they push against the edges, those boundaries create a sense of safety and structure. But it's not just about having rules. It's about being steady in how we enforce them. If we react one way today and a totally different way tomorrow, our kids don't learn how to respect authority. They learn how to manipulate inconsistency, and often disrespect is simply a reflection of confusion. They don't know what's expected because what's expected keeps changing. That's why consistent discipline matters. I don't mean harsh punishment. I mean intentional, thoughtful correction, the kind that says, this is not acceptable and here's the consequence, not out of anger but out of love. And then here's the hard part. You actually follow through even when you're tired, even when it's inconvenient, because every time you do, you reinforce the truth that your words mean something. And when your words have weight, your child begins to listen. Maybe not right away, maybe not without protest, but over time your consistency becomes their compass. Let me tell you something else about consistency. It communicates security. When a child knows you're going to respond with clarity and fairness every time, it settles something inside of them. Even if they get angry in the moment, deep down they feel safe. They may not say it, but they know that your love isn't swayed by their attitude, that you're not going to withdraw, explode, or shift depending on your mood. You are anchored, and in a world that feels unpredictable to a child, that kind of stability is a gift. Now, I know staying consistent isn't easy. Life is busy. Emotions run high, and sometimes we just want to avoid the fight. We want to let it slide just this once. But the problem is, just once becomes just twice, and then 3 times. And before long, our kids aren't sure what we actually stand for. They start testing limits not because they're rebellious, but because they're trying to figure out where the line really is. Consistency also means showing up emotionally. It's not just about discipline, it's about presence. Are you there, really there in your child's life? Are you paying attention when they speak, or just nodding while your mind is somewhere else? Kids can tell. They know when you're fully present, and they know when you're phoning it in. And believe it or not, disrespect often grows in the absence of real connection. When kids don't feel seen or heard, they act out. So staying consistent means making the effort to connect regularly, not just when there's a problem. It also means staying consistent in how we speak to our kids, not just what we say, but how we say it. If you want to raise a respectful child, you've got to speak respectfully, even in correction. If one day you talk to them with grace, and the next day you lash out with sarcasm or contempt, it sends mixed signals. It's confusing, but when your tone is steady, your words are measured, and your presence is calm, it sends a clear message. I'm not here to fight you, I'm here to guide you. I've seen parents who swing between extremes, super strict one moment, then overly permissive the next. That kind of inconsistency doesn't build trust, it creates insecurity. Children learn to walk on eggshells or to tune out entirely. But when you stay grounded, when your yes means yes and your no means no, when you follow through on consequences with kindness but firmness, your child begins to understand that respect is not just expected, it's modeled and upheld. This kind of parenting doesn't always feel rewarding in the short term. You might go weeks or months without seeing obvious progress, but seeds don't grow overnight. They need sunlight, water, and time. And your consistency is the water, your faithful, patient, unwavering presence, even when your child rolls their eyes or slams the door, is what cultivates change, quietly, steadily, powerfully, because at the end of the day, what your child needs most is not a perfect parent, but a consistent one,